Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one I have a very interesting beer for you, and I never thought I'd find this kind of style of beer. So we are going to go to the Mount Fuji region in Japan and have a taste of a beer from Fujisakura Heights. Of course, just Fuji cherry blossom, but this guy is a Rauch beer, and as I say, I never would have thought you could find a Rauch beer in Japan, so very, very cool. If you've watched my channel before, you'll know that my love of beer really began with the Bamberg Rauch beers when I went over to Germany to visit my friend Daniel, who lives in Bamberg. So to find a Rauch beer from Japan, my favourite style of beer in my favourite country that I've visited recently, was very, very cool, and I never thought it would have happened. So as I always do with my Japanese beer reviews, I want to dedicate this one to my lady Michiko Ozaki, and also to give a big shout out to my good friend Lee Katayama from Osaka. So a big thank you to both of you for this video, and I hope you enjoy the review. But as I always do with my reviews, I'll take you through a very brief history of the company with this one. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. The brewery website's in the description for you below, in Japanese and in English, I'll point out, and there is also a link down there that will take you to my future reviews that I'll do from Fujisakura in the fairly near future. So anyway, to tell you just about exactly where this brewery is, the brewery is located in Yamanshi Prefecture near Kawaguchi Lake, which is in the foothills of the Mount Fuji region in Japan. You're talking just a little bit to the south of Tokyo actually. But the company is known officially as Fujikaikankohatsu, but their beers are all marketed as Fujisakura Heights beers, and this is a very common thing in Japan. If you think about the Kyuchi brewery and their Hitachino Nest range, and you also have the Tamamura Honten brewery and their Shigakogen beer range, so it's a very common thing that the beers take a different name from the actual brewery company, if you like. So the head brewer at Fujisakura is Mayashita Hiromichi, and he was sent by his company to study brewing in Germany back in 1996, but before this he worked under a brewmaster in Hiroshima who had graduated from the same academy that he was going to attend in Germany, and he headed over there for 6 weeks in 1996, but he didn't speak a word of German at all, so he was sent over there with a translator and learned how to brew beers, and upon his return to Japan he studied for a further few months in Iwate under another brewer before returning to his parent company. But the brewery actually have a restaurant called Sylvan's, and they wanted Mayashita to learn how to make a Rauch beer because they felt that it would suit the atmosphere in the restaurant, because it's a very kind of foresty location, and they also had a Pils beer and a Weizen beer at the time, and German beers are actually very popular in Japan, and the Rauch beer style was seen by the bosses at the Sylvan's restaurant as being a bit of a lost art in Japan, so of course they sent Mayashita over to Germany to learn how to brew it, and of course he was going to bring it back to them there. But the brewery now focuses on brewing its own interpretations of various different styles of German beers, and since they've actually started up back in the mid-90s, they've become one of the most decorated breweries in Japan, and it's one of the easiest ones to find actually. You'll see a lot of these beers in any good bottle shop in Japan, although there are the very much smaller microbreweries and things when you get to some of the better beer shops. But a very, very cool brewery that do dedicate themselves particularly to German styles of beer. So to list a few other styles of beer that you can get from these guys, they have their chocolate wheat, the Dunkelweizen, the Festival Weizen, their Pils beer, this guy which is the Rauch beer. There's also a variant of this called Rauch Bock, and they also have the Sakura Bock, Schwarzweizen, Weizen and Weizenbock as well. So as you can tell just by the names of those beers, they are all German styles of beer. But that's your kind of brief history of the Fujisakura brewery and the Fujikaikankohatsu brewery, if you like, just however you want to describe it. But we'll get on to the tasting of this beer now. So let me just bring up the camera and let you have a little look at the artwork on this one. So this guy is 5.5%, and apparently Mayashita actually didn't enjoy this beer the first time he brewed it, but he grew to appreciate it. He learned to appreciate it after drinking it a few times. So quite funny that the head brewer didn't actually enjoy this beer the first time he tried it. So you can see there, that's just a cherry blossom on the bottle cap of this one. So I'm going to keep this bottle because I think it is very cool. I wanted to save this beer for one of my landmark reviews, but it wasn't going to last that long. It says on the side that it's best before the 23rd of June, so there's not really any more landmark beer reviews probably coming up in that time, because it's mid-May when I'm filming this, so I just want to get onto it now. But as you can see, it's actually really nicely presented, typical kind of Japanese with all the cherry blossoms and stuff, and the sort of hop flowers just on the top of it there. But without further ado, let's get this guy open and we'll get on with the tasting. So it's 5.5%, and let's get cracking. So as you can see, a nice little smoky opening as we open the beer up. And we'll bring it out. I'll need to go and visit this brewery the next time I go to Japan, because I really want to do the Mount Fuji hike, so hopefully I can convince Michiko to do that with me the next time I go there, or maybe even Lee. I'll convince one of them that we can go up and check out this brewery. So as you can see, the beer's actually poured a really nice kind of reddish mahogany colour. I'll just bring up the light and let you have a proper look at the colour there. If the light goes through it, you can see it's a nice sort of dark mahogany colour, and if you take it up to the light, it does actually have a good bit of a red tinge to it, and there's quite a little bit of sedimentation that's actually just come in this one. You can see there's a finger of a frothy, slightly creamy coloured head. It's not completely white. Cream coloured is probably a good way to describe it. There's a little bit of carbonation just going up towards the bottom of the head on this one, and there are some bigger bubbles sticking to the side of the glass as well, but it looks really, really nice. And this beer, as I said to you, is very decorated. It's described as being one of the best Rauch beers in the world, which is quite interesting when you think it doesn't come from Germany, it actually comes from Japan. So it looks very, very nice. Nice dark mahogany colour, frothy kind of cream coloured head, good little bit of carbonation, some sedimentation in the bottom, just very small particles. So yeah, let's give it a smell and see how we get on. So as you would expect, very smoky and very meaty actually. This one incidentally has a little bit more of a kind of peaty smell, if that makes sense, in comparison to the German Rauch beers. It reminds me a little bit more of a kind of Scottish kind of peaty smell. The head on this one's just kind of fading away to a very thin layer now, but you've got a nice roasted malt character. As you sugar it up a bit more, you start to get a more meaty element out of it, but if you just kind of sit it still, it actually smells more peaty. So a little bit more, I don't even know how you describe that, it's a little bit more smoky if you like, but it's a very roasted malt beer, this one. Nice bit of caramel malt in there, and as you sugar it up, you're getting a little bit of rye bread, sweet rye bread coming out of it too. Maybe even some nuts, but the most prominent component of the aroma really is the kind of almost smoked meat that comes out of it. But a nice roasted element too. But I want to say there's a kind of sweeter, sort of peaty note coming out of this beer. If you know your whiskies, you'll know what I mean by a kind of peaty smell, and I want to say the actual smoky character that comes off of this one really is more peaty, and the Japanese are very much into their whiskey as well, so that would make sense that it smells a little bit more peaty. But yeah, you can smell, there is a little bit of a kind of grassiness to it as well if you just sugar it up, I think. You can just pick that up, but there's a nice, it's an overwhelmingly malty beer on the aroma, so a nice kind of smoked meat character, a bit smoky. There are some dark bread elements to it as well, and some caramel, but it's actually very sweet, and some nutty elements coming out of it too. But it smells really beautiful. As I always say with the beers, take a little bit of time to smell them before you taste them. But without further ado, let's have a taste of the Fujizakura Rauch beer, Slanja. Now that's really nice. Very interesting mouthfeel. Actually, it has all the taste that you expect of a German Rauch beer, but it's just very different in the mouthfeel, which is quite interesting. So yeah, it's got a very light mouthfeel. The German ones feel a little bit heavier than this. It's almost in the same way that I described the French beer. It's got a very light mouthfeel in comparison, but it's full of flavour, so it's very interesting in that regard. Yeah, so it's a nice kind of sweet roasted malt beer, but you have a very big sort of smoked meaty flavour in this one. Yeah, over the middle of the tongue you just get a really nice slightly sweet rye bread flavour that just blankets that middle part of the tongue. There's a little bit of sweeter caramel just goes in there too, but the main component of the flavour really is the nice kind of juicy and smoked meat, and that just goes around the edge of the tongue there. There's very little, if any, hop character comes out of this beer. It is a huge malty beer. yeah, you've got some really nice nutty flavours just blend in with that kind of sweet rye bread flavour, and also the nice little bit of caramel. Just some nice nut goes in there, but the overwhelming component of this beer really is the sweet kind of smoked meaty character, and that just goes right around the edge of the tongue. There is perhaps a little bit of a kind of slightly grassy, a very mild, slightly grassy hop just around the front of the tongue there. You can pick that up as you go into the aftertaste, but the main component of the flavour really is the nice dark roasted malts. It's really nicely done actually. Yeah, it really is beautiful actually. I really enjoy this beer. Very, very light in the mouthfeel, like I was saying, but the meat in this one, you're not really getting much of a peaty flavour, as I was saying. It's more of a smoked meat. It's not a kind of separately smoky flavour from a separately meaty flavour. It's very nicely blended together, this one. It's really good. You can pick up a little bit of woody notes in this as well. Of course, the way that they do these beers is that they burn logs and smoke the malt with that, so you do get some woody flavours in this. This guy is a little bit more vanilla, so I'd really be interested what kind of wood that they actually use for this one. In Bamberg, the Rauch beers, they tend to use beech logs, but they have special beers where they use oak trees. You get the Eiche Rauch beers as well, and they use oak wood for that. This guy has a little bit of a vanilla kind of woody flavour in it as well, so I'd be interested really to know what type of logs they use for the malt in this one. But I mean, overall, it's a really beautiful flavoured beer. You just get that really nice bready mouthfeel, a little bit of caramel, a little bit of nuts, and around the edge of the tongue you get that nice juicy smoked meaty character that comes out, and just a little bit of kind of light grassy hop around the front of the tongue there, but it is very mild. The thing that goes into the aftertaste really is the slightly smoked meat flavour. There is a little bit of smoky kind of dryness around the edge of the tongue too. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel, I think it's fair to say that this one is kind of mid-bodied. It's quite a bit lighter than the Rauch beers you will get from Germany, but then again, it's maybe a bit heavier on tap, so I don't know about that. It's maybe just the bottle conditioning that does it, but to me, this guy is quite mid-bodied. The carbonation is very light, and the beer is very smooth. It's almost kind of quite silky actually. But as I say, it's a very kind of sweet malt flavoured beer, this one, but it's not overpowering with its sweetness. It's just a nice kind of light sweetness there, a nice little bready sweetness, a bit of caramel and other things, but it's really nicely done, I have to say. There is a little bit of dryness just at the front of the tongue from the hoppy character, a little bit of grassy, very mild grassy hop in there, and then you've got the nice sort of ashy smoke flavours on the back sides of the tongue there. It's really, really beautifully done, so I would recommend that you give this guy a go if you get a chance with it. It's got a nice oily mouthfeel that just helps bring out those nice juicy meaty flavours. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. It's been really cool to go and review a Japanese Rauch beer for you. As I say, I thought this style didn't exist at all, but how wrong was I? So it's a really beautiful beer. If you do get a chance, if you do enjoy German beers and you like Japanese beers as well, then I guess Fujisakura is a very good brewery for you to have a look at. I can tell you for certain I will be trying a few more of their beers. So I thank you for watching my beer review. Let me know in the comments section your own thoughts on this beer if you have tried it before. Been really cool to review this one, so I thank you for watching, and please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff, and I will catch you soon with more beer reviews, and hopefully I can do some more Japanese beers for you soon too. Cheers!